Chris Vachon, Clark Curtis, Kevin Charbonneau, myself, the city clerk treasurer Jim Johnson, and outgoing city manager, one more day, Laura Dolgan. So we've brought you all to order. Thank you for coming. This is what democracy is supposed to be all about. All right, I've got one thing I'm going to read first before we go into public comment. Hot off the press. Unfortunately, right now we're in a world where everything comes from our lawyers. I'm going to change public comment, seeing as how I am running the meeting, on agenda items to come after the council has initially considered an item before a motion was made. In other words, once I read what the motion is going to be, the public will be allowed to weigh in on that particular item, and not for a half hour. Then, once the motion is made and seconded, the only discussion left is with the council. This is a meeting in public, not of the public. So the council rules only speak about open public comment during the first 15 minutes. They do not say when the public may comment on a specific agenda item, so that will come after we've read what is going to be off the agenda. You what?
I can't hear.
Well, I'm speaking.
I can't hear, so if we could just wait until everybody comes in, that would be great.
Well, I've started the meeting. If they show up late, it's not my fault. All right, item number 2.
It's starting in. Who's the meeting for? I think the meeting's for the public, too.
Ma'am, one portion is for the public. You get to speak right at the start.
Let's wait
Okay.
until everybody gets out of work
Okay.
and can get here,
Hold on,
if you would, sir.
hold on. If you're not even, are you signed up to speak? If not, I'll
There
tell
was
you
no
one
issue
time.
until I
If you interrupt again, we'll escort you out.
Well, everybody's here, so
Okay.
let's carry on.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You know that. Okay, the second item is additions, changes, deletions to the agenda. Are there any? There may be one, because somewhere in the line, I'm going to respond a little bit to some of this prosecution off Facebook, okay? Thank you very much. We'll go on to item number 3, public comment. And during this time frame, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can have up to 2.5 minutes, because you got 15 minutes for the entire public. First one to speak is Heidi Eichenberger, topic council. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that I think a lot of us are very concerned and disappointed. We ask questions to the council and they're told that they can't answer us. We elected the council. I think it's your privilege and need to obligation to answer us. We elected you in, and we feel that we should have a voice. By denying any of our questions answered, you're basically changing a democratic system into something that we'd rather not hear. If you were suggested by council not to answer, I would naively like to think it's because you have something to hide. If you have nothing to hide, and you've not done anything wrong, if you've not bullied anyone, if you didn't make anybody feel unwelcomed, and you didn't disrespect our vote, well, I'd just basically like to hear it. I am flabbergasted because I spoke to Curtis way before, and he disliked a lot of things, and I won't mention all of them here. And he's turned around I spoke with Chris Fashon before, and I asked him why he runs, and he says he wants to leave a legacy to his children. Well, this legacy is just not one that you'd want to leave behind. And as for you, Mr. Wilson, I just get really worried about how worked up you get, and that's just the mom in me. But I get a lot of people in my office, and if there's one thing that they all say is they hate the discord, they hate the infighting, and most people want to see change. So if you do have to get another city manager in, you can't vote in even temporary Laura, because she doesn't have any skin in the game when she leaves Newport. So she has nothing to lose, and that worries a lot of us.
Thank you very much. Next on the public comment is Susan Watson, the auditor.
I'm Susan Watson. I live on Spruce Street, and I'm a retired CPA.
Can you speak up, Susan, please? There's a microphone right there.
Oh.
Well, that doesn't go
Oh,
anywhere but to
okay.
me. Too bad.
At the May 15th council meeting, the city manager read a June 30th, 2020 management letter from the auditors KBS and stated that it was a boilerplate letter. This is true to a point. There are certain paragraphs in a management letter that's issued by the auditor that are boilerplate. Where it ceases to become boilerplate is what the auditors found when they audited the internal controls. The range of issues can be classified as material weaknesses, serious weaknesses, or no weaknesses. Newport City in this management letter and other management letters for other years has material weaknesses. The description of these weaknesses are no internal controls, the staff is unable to write year-end entries and change the financials from a cash basis to an accrual basis. They're unable to produce the financial statements, and they cannot write footnotes. I had planned to work with the mayor on this and to try to help the city cure these weaknesses. I do intend to continue on my own to see if I can bring the most cost-effective way that we can handle the audits. This brings me to the point of the city manager. When she read this, she said it was boilerplate. It wasn't boilerplate. It mentioned material weaknesses, which is a huge red flag. I think when you're looking for an interim manager and you're looking for a permanent city manager, you need someone with auditing, accounting experience that would read this letter and say, this is serious, we've got to do something to cure it. Laura apparently doesn't have that, and it's also shown when it comes to the budget, she's been unable to explain the budget to the public too. So these are two very important points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Beth Barnes. I think it says a few words.
Just give a few words.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Beth Barnes. I live on Jackson Street in Newport, Vermont. The hardest part of my resignation was the uncertainty of how a shift in leadership would impact the city of Newport. While it has been suggested that I should have stuck it out or it was not that bad, I could no longer endure the actions and treatment. While I have emails and texts documenting actions alluded to, much of the mistreatment happened behind closed doors in executive sessions. Faced with these efforts at intimidation and what I perceived as threats, I could not effectively do the job I was elected to do. I will continue to pursue remedies personally, to start conversations about what are best choices for the city going forward. This is not about me, it's about the residents of Newport. Certain members of city leadership have faithfully served for many years. However, over the past several years, the relationship between residents and the leadership has become fractured and divisive. We are a small community with great potential, but the growing division between leadership and residents and lack of progressive ideas and actions has allowed the city to stagnate. I agreed completely with Melissa's comments at the last council meeting. The role of city leadership is challenging as they balance the best decision for the broadest segment of the community. However, I was disappointed in her scolding of residents for voicing their opinions and requesting feedback from the leadership. While she suggested residents are not showing respect for the leadership's service, it is not disrespect, but it's pent-up frustration with the lack of accountability, transparency, and progressive ideas and actions by city leadership. The elected officials need to demonstrate that they are determined to move Newport forward. I approached my new responsibilities as mayor with great enthusiasm and ideas, including potential solutions for the abandoned property on Main Street, introducing youth to city government, increasing tourism, and attracting economic development opportunities to create jobs and increase tax revenues. Current leaders should have great pride in their years of service and recognize the value of embracing the community, and that new ideas and more active leadership would certainly energize and move Newport forward. Over the past 2 weeks, the city manager has resigned to work part-time remotely from Virginia, which affects the continuity of city management. I hope residents can understand my decision to resign as mayor. While I would enjoy continuing to be your mayor, change is needed to repair the community and leadership relationships, maintain the continuity of city management, attract new residents, and make Newport a #1 tourist destination. I certainly hope the current leadership will be thoughtful in their decisions on what would be the next best move for Newport. Thank you, all of you.
I did let you go a little.
I know,
but
and I
don't
appreciate
have
that,
you
John.
off the middle of right.
I realize that.
The next one, 2 minutes. Amy Gillespie, and a few words and a smiley face.
All right. You're gonna have to think a little outside the box. I never do anything normal, so just roll me for a little
Can I
bit.
have you come up to our microphone so we can?
Oh, jeez. Yes, well, I can try my
Thank
best.
you.
I'm shaking a little bit. So. Okay. Thanks, John. All right. Today I want to speak briefly about gardening. We choose carefully what we plant in our garden for it to be successful. We want plants that are supportive of each other. We wouldn't want to plant the onions with the asparagus because it inhibits its growth. We wouldn't want to plant the corn with the tomatoes because it could deplete the nutrients in the soil. We want to focus on companion planting whenever possible. So, what that means, we want to plant garlic between potatoes to naturally deter aphids, or corn with peas to offer strong supports for them to grow on. Once we establish where they're going to go, we take care of our garden. We put in quality soil, we make sure it's watered and has adequate sun. We do all that we can do for our garden to thrive. Well, a couple years ago, I created one of my first gardens, and I already started my plants indoors and happily planted them in the soil in my yard, watered it, etc. To my dismay, the plants kept dying. Nothing on top was visibly hurting them, but when I pulled up their roots, they were all gone. I had to dig under the soil to find the culprit. I found grubs. I was upset. I had done everything I possibly could to set up my garden for success, yet hiding beneath it all, those little pests destroyed the potential of my garden. Moral of the story, our city government and management is like a garden. We can pick and choose who we have in it, hoping they'll be good companion plants. But if we don't have the right conditions to support it and all the necessary precautions, it'll never meet its full potential. Thank you.
That's why I go to the vegetable stands to get my vegetables. And the last on the list is Ann Cirillo, appointment of a new mayor.
I noticed with surprise, number 5 on the agenda. It says approval of the notice of vacancy for the appointment of a new mayor. Now, I understand the notice of vacancy part, but I don't know when council ever decided that they were going to appoint a new mayor as opposed to hold an election to get a new mayor. Our mayor, Beth Barnes, was taken away from us after we, the city, in a large majority, as I recall, voted for her. You took away our voted-in candidate, and now, without us knowing when you made this decision for appointment, which it mentions there, you're not going to hold another election so we can pick another person. Well, if you do go into an appointment situation, I want you to consider these things. No one should be allowed to be appointed who participated, and you as select board members did participate in the ugly situation that developed, that caused one of the few women mayors that we've ever had to resign. So people shouldn't be able to gain from what's been done. If in the course of these things you sent, other than the executive session, you sent emails that were ugly, if you stood up and said to the person more than once, you shouldn't be mayor, I should be mayor. These are all things that would suggest that you should not be the person appointed. So think carefully about who you're going to appoint, and we will do as citizens whatever we can by petition to get a vote, but do it ahead of time. Get us somebody that we can vote for. You know, who blamed the mayor for not getting us a new city manager quickly? Well, she was in her position for 3 weeks when the resignation of the city manager occurred. And whose tutelage was she under at that time but the city manager? And whose advantage is it to delay and in getting a new city manager because she put a contract in? So, I mean, you're taking advice, it seems to me, in addition to some of the things you said, you're taking advice from a poor source. Thank you. I might have made more comments to make at the right juncture.
Thank you, Ann.
Before I go on to the item number 4, I guess I'm in the public. I'm going to make a couple of comments just on my public hanging, I guess. Hopefully I'm going to use the name too, I don't give a cat. Alan Green Thumb, I'm going to give you a response because you don't want to come and see me. Yes, the city did come out and repaired part of my lawn. They tore out about 1.5 feet of all the sod by the sidewalk. Normally I repair it myself, but in this particular case, and I beat Tom up after the rains, and they were coming down our street, and not only there was no sod left to hold it, but it was undermining West Main Street. So I said, if I fix it, it's still going to be undermined. So I got with city manager and Tom came out, took a look at it, and said, leave it alone. We're going to have to compact it in and under the road, or we're not going to have a road. So yes, they put a little dirt down. That was all I asked for, was dirt. Because you can't find much dirt shopping in stores. And so they have reseeded it. I try to water it, but I don't know if it's working. But that's my response. Yes, the city tore up my lawn, and I would hope that at any time, and I know it has over my last 20 years, if we damage your property, inform the city, and we'll fix it for you. One had a real problem on the succession plan. thank you, Charlie Prono. I think you answered all our questions. I'm gonna have one other, and this was the one that surprised me today. So every day, you have the fear of turning on your dang computer. So someone has been holding a grudge for 15 years and mentioned the fact that Tom Bernier was using a city truck in Maine about 15 years ago. And I was on the council then, and Tom wasn't very happy with us, but we put a stop to it. But now with all the public outcry, something that we fixed 15 years ago is still bugging her, I guess. That's her opinion. She can sit behind her computer and do all that good stuff. One last thing before we go on. We've used a lot of this point of order. Point of order is only done and used by the council. Only by the council. That's from our city lawyers. So if there's a problem, I guess you can research your laws and see if he doesn't know what he's talking about. But we take our advice from a lawyer. That's why we pay him. And I won't go on anymore. No, that's all I will mention on that right now. I've got a lot more written down, but I don't need to talk about it. So the next item, number 4, is acceptance of the mayor's resignation. Public can weigh in. You're not getting 3 minutes to talk. And then we'll go ahead. You'll have comments about that one particular item, and then we'll ask for a motion in a second. Public's quiet? Okay.
Hold on. Yes, okay. I don't accept. You shouldn't accept. We voted her in. She got over 365 votes.
No,
I
she got
vote that
about-
everybody should play nice and that you keep what we voted. That would be respectful. That's my comment.
Thank you.
I
All
don't
right.
accept it either. I feel like there was hope for our community, hope for change, hope for our kids. And I think that's important. And I think that you guys should really hope for change too. Change isn't bad, it's scary, and there's a lot of fear based behind that. And that's how we react. We react out of fear.
Yeah.
And we do things we don't need to out of fear. And I hope you guys really think about it and really take into consideration of hope and new change and new.
All right. And I'll respond before we go for the motion. It was a surprise to me and probably the rest of the council when it happened. And all I hear is an elected official. All of us are elected officials. That's all I'll say on that. So, do I have a, all right, do I hear a motion to accept the mayor's resignation? I'll make that motion.
Any more public comment?
No, I'm done. I've already making a motion.
Oh, but maybe we could have a show of hands so that we could, some of us don't speak well in public.
Sorry about that. We already have a motion to accept the resignation. Do I hear a second?
I don't know why we're here. Why
All-
are we here?
All those in
Why are
favor,
we here?
No,
say aye.
Why are we here?
Why are you
I'm
here?
not sure why the
Hold
public
on.
is even
All
here.
those in favor, say aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Hmm?
Is there discussion first?
No. We already had that.
Council.
We already made the decision
Council
weeks
decision.
ago,
There was
folks.
a
We
motion.
made the decision weeks ago, folks.
And let
You
me
made
say,
the
excuse me,
decision
I'm speaking
weeks
right
ago.
now, right? I'm running the meeting, and I told you,
Well.
you may not be here for the rest of the meeting.
I'll
But
be
I'm
here
gonna
in
tell
town,
you,
though, I'll
I'm gonna tell you
that.
right
I will
now.
be here in town.
Fine. Would you mind leaving, or do I have to have
No,
the police escort
I'm
you
not
out?
leaving.
Okay, then you keep
Chief,
interrupting,
come on.
and I will cancel the entire meeting. All right? One thing to know immediately. The second that a resignation was handed to us, she was no longer the mayor. The council voting on it is just furthering it on.
Did
So-
you have an agenda for that meeting before you guys walked in? I'm just wondering if you could answer that question.
What do you mean an agenda?
I'm just wondering if you all had an agenda for that meeting before
Ma'am.
anyone walked in.
We had no idea she was gonna resign.
No, I think you had
Oh,
an agenda for that
no.
meeting.
Okay,
All
so
right.
I'll leave,
you please leave.
please. Mr. Wilson,
Stop lying.
I just didn't hear who made the motion.
Mr. Charbonneau made the motion.
Thank you.
It was seconded by Mr. Clark, Mr. Gison. And now we're gonna put it to a vote.
Just a question, there's many comments coming from online, do those get read
I've already,
into,
Ma'am.
I'm not discussing this issue, I'm just for my own clarification. If someone who is visiting us online makes a comment, do those get written into the minutes? Do we get to hear them, or what happens with the people
No.
online
They
commenting?
don't get into the minutes.
They don't get,
And
they don't get a
this
voice?
discussion right now
When you're in the meeting, we're not in the
is
meeting.
for the council only.
Okay.
You want to speak about the resignation?
I'll actually comment about the chat going on. In the past, it has been let people digitally raise their hand or they unmute themselves and they are allowed to comment. That has been happening in the past.
So there's no chat log that can be included in this, is that
So-
what you're saying?
I'm not sure about that part, but during the meeting itself, we have had public comment from the virtual side.
So, I have a motion.
I think Kevin's trying to. Kevin.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, I, like many others, was shocked and stunned by Beth Barnes' resignation. But what was more disturbing were the many allegations she made in her letter of resignation. And I quote, "I've spent 75 days being berated, intimidated, bullied, and was commanded not to do certain things and forbidden from doing others." She explains this was done through text, emails, and verbally, behind the closed doors of an executive session where there is no accountability to the public. It's a free-for-all, she stated. This meeting, described as grueling, occurred on May 9th. She ended her resignation advising she would be available for public comment, but not that night. And it was dated May 22nd, 2023. After publicly stating this, she left the council chambers before any questions could be asked. What happened? What have I done to Beth? Why has she resigned? She continued this incendiary language through public gatherings and through various media outlets. Once a firestorm hit social media, she did nothing to identify those responsible or elaborate on what happened. She allowed the misinformation to spread. Because of her inflammatory rhetoric, people have jumped to the conclusion that the entire council, along with the city manager, are to blame. There were no specific facts, only vague allegations. It's reminiscent of the Salem witch trials, where very Thank you for the respect, people. I always comment when you make something. It's very reminiscent of the Salem witch trials, where very often just an allegation was enough to incite the mob and condemn a person as a witch. Very often, facts don't have a place in this mob mentality, as there is a rush to judgment. I've received emails, read the newspapers, watched the news, and people wanting to know what I did to our mayor. What did I do to create such a negative environment? Why hasn't the council responded? Why are we silent? This silence clearly reveals our guilt. There are cries of cover-up, the good old boys game, a city council intent on holding back the community, just to name a few comments made. Excuse me. Quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know what I'm alleged to have done, so how can I respond? How can anybody respond to baseless allegations? One has to know what they did wrong in order to respond. What actions have I done that are considered to be berating, intimidating, and bullying? I want due process. I want to know what I, Kevin Charbonneau, has done to Beth Barnes to cause her to resign. If I did wrong, tell me, so I can apologize and correct myself so it doesn't happen again. I like to think that I'm not a bully, that I don't intimidate people, nor do I berate people. What is it then that I did? If nothing, then I demand an apology. Make no mistake, I do not kid myself to think that this in any way will change people's opinions or wild accusations. It will, however, provide a much needed specifics for those people who like facts to substantiate their decisions. Beth has always professed transparency. The public has a right to know what happens. Why then has Beth remained silent on exactly what transpired to label us as bullies? Clearly, Beth feels that this meeting on May 9th violated the statutes along with other blatant statute violations. Shouldn't the public know? I want to know. As a side note, I was not there on the May 9th meeting, but I take umbrage to the accusations made about the city council. In addition, I will not meet privately with Beth. As she has moved this matter to the public arena, I think the public has the right to know. Perhaps at some time she can address us at our next regular council meeting. I apologize for taking up valuable time on this a very hot day, but I do believe that if we don't address these defamatory accusations made by Beth, they will continue to fester, creating further dissension among the public and undermining the important task ahead of us. Just to be clear, I am not encouraging Beth to rescind her resignation. She has made her choice, but I want to know specifics. I demand due process. So I ask again, what have I done to you, Beth Barnes?
Does anybody get a chance to respond to that at all?
I don't think we need to.
No, we're
We
not.
could say this, but we can't respond. So you asked,
You're out of order right now. We have a motion, second, council discussion. Okay.
Yeah, under advisement of legal advice, I can't answer that now, but I would happily do so if I'm advised that I can release the emails. Thank you for your comments, Kevin. I know none of this is easy, and I appreciate you saying what you did. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. It's unfortunate that the entire council was painted with a broad brush when we really don't know what happened.
So we're gonna. He wants to listen to it, but he's not speaking. So I have a motion to accept the resignation. I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Then it's official. as it was when you turned the letter in. The mayor has resigned. That was very fast action. Now, we'll move on to the next item. It's the approval of the notice of vacancy for the appointment of a new mayor, 24 VSA 961A. Now's the time, public, okay, before we entertain you. Yes, ma'am.
So I understand that in reference to the vacancy of the mayor, the council is abiding by 24 VSA 961. But I'm wondering why. And the reason I'm saying that is because in a previous meeting, I believe it was when you were appointing the new assessor, I had asked if there was some sort of legal requirement for these positions to be posted. And I was told that no, because the council simply appoints, and so there's no legal notice required. It seems that you're appointing the mayor this time around, and now saying that you have to satisfy your legal requirement according to Vermont Statute 24 VSA 961. The statute does not speak just to the mayor. The statute speaks to any officer of the city. So why is it now that you're abiding by the statute when historically you have not? Is it just because the press is here? You can answer the question.
Would you like our lawyer to respond to that? Did you hear it?
I did, Council President. The question is why we are following 961 here. It is because the charter is explicit that the city council shall have all the powers of the select board. And the 24 VSA 961 directs the select board when there is a vacancy to issue a notice thereof.
That's correct, sir. Why has the city not done it for other vacancies?
There are some, I can't say for everything, but there are provisions of the charter that specifically state that council shall appoint certain officers.
But this 961 does not relieve the responsibility of the city to notify of a vacancy. It actually speaks to the fact that if they're going to appoint, they need to post notice. So why has historically this notice not been given?
The charter controls over general law, so where the charter explicitly says the council shall appoint, that's what it does.
All right. Thank you. Yes.
John, I just have a question. I read the charter. So maybe when I read, I thought the latest version of it. It was my understanding that the mayor resigns or dies or whatever, that the council president has a certain amount of days to accept a position, and then you assume that position until the next elected. You can either hold a special election or till the next election. So I was under the impression that a mayor could not be appointed. That was just my impression. When I read everything in the charter, because I had a bunch of people say, so what's next? And I said, so I read the charter. I don't see anywhere where the council can appoint a mayor. And we did in the past, when I was mayor, appoint council members. But that's a little different. So the way I would have seen the thing going is you would decide whether or not you wanted to be mayor. you would assume that duty, and then you could appoint a council member. So I'm wondering why we are at this. Does the charter get overridden by Vermont statutes or not? And if it does, then what's the point in having a charter? So that's my question.
The charter controls over general law. The charter provides that the council may fill vacancies in elective city offices until the next annual meeting, unless a special city meeting for the purpose of filling such vacancy is sooner warned and held. That's section 8. We advise that where there is a vacancy and the charter doesn't say how to fill it, that we follow the general law. And that is posting a notice of vacancy. This does not prohibit the city from having a special election sometime between now and the annual meeting in March. At the annual meeting in March, there will be an opportunity to elect a mayor for the remainder of the mayor's term if there is not a special election warned prior to that meeting.
But can I just follow up on that? So when I read it, the charter does say that when the mayor resigns or dies, that the president of the council will become mayor, has to accept it within 10 days. Nowhere did I read that they could appoint somebody. So that part is in the charter, because I read it the other day. So I just not sure I agree with this process.
I just want to know that, suppose hypothetically, if John becomes mayor, they would have to appoint yet another councillor, or it would go up for election. And even now, like let's say you were voting, you don't have a tiebreaker. It could be 2-2, and even if you say you all agree, but that could be also a certain amount of intimidation because you know you can't break the tie. So it just seems a little bit disconcerting to a lot of us of how that works. And if I were you guys, I would say, well, if you have to appoint someone, appoint the mayor back, make nice, and everybody will be happy. That's my solution.
I had a follow-up question for the attorney.
One follow-up question and that's it.
I'm sorry, but I don't know your name. Is it Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Rue, I had one follow-up question. So the charter, I'm doing this from recall, sir, so it might not be verbatim. The charter mentions that under the power of the council, they are able, when there's a vacancy of an elected official, they are able to choose between appointment and special election at their discretion. You're now saying that they have to do a 10-day vacancy notice. And I'm still coming back to the same issue, that if it's at their discretion to appoint, and the town assessor is actually somebody that's supposed to be done by election according to the charter, why it is that the notice has never been followed in the past.
I can't answer that question.
Thank you.
I don't know the answer.
Thank you.
If your premises are correct, which I'm not passing judgment on, they may be incorrect.
Hello everyone, my name is Rod Owens. If you don't remember me, I was the guy that came in second. And this election happened 75 days ago, and she resigned 75 days into her 730-day term. So if we review the vote count, and instead of, I think it was almost 75 votes that I lost. So when you choose, if you are going to go with an appointment versus a special election, I hope that's something that we keep centered, since the election was only 75 days ago. That's what I was hoping. And just a couple other things. Point of order is different from point of clarification, and we should be running these meetings with Robert's Rules and Parliamentary Procedure. So a lot of this extra stuff, we're just making it so much more difficult on ourselves. We gotta be respectful. That being said, I believe, if Mr. Johnson wants to review the election results and frame those things, I believe, I just wanna know where this is going before it goes too
Doesn't
far.
work that way.
There are 4 different charters. I mean, not every city, in the state of Vermont goes by the same process. Burlington has a different way, Winooski has a different way, St. Albans has a different way, Rutland has a different way. Actually, Newport's isn't defined. So that's why the recourse is the General Assembly. So whether it's going to appointment or a special election, it just needs to be clarified on what the procedure and the process is going to be. And honestly, I mean, if you chose somebody that didn't actually run in the election and go through all of the rigmarole in January and February, I mean, it kind of makes the whole program and process questionable.
Once I read this, put that in your
Yes.
letter. One last thing I will say, hopefully he doesn't shoot me down. When a vacancy occurs, there's one of 4 options. Number 1, in the case of the mayor, I could slide over and be the mayor with their vote. I choose not to. And the reason is, I've been here now for well over a year taking, and I will call it, I can read the letter about bullying. And in my world, and we all perceive stuff, as did Beth, I perceive that we have been bullied over the same subjects for dang close to a year. So I choose not to run for mayor. I will be all done next March. 22 years is enough. Probably some of you'd like to see me walk out right now. It's immaterial. We can do that, or we can go without. We can work with a 4-member board. That's an option we had. At which time, as president of the board, I would still run the meetings till March of next year. That's number 2. Number 3 is post a vacancy, and that will got to be posted by 1 June. It's going to be posted today, and then you give so much time to put in a letter as to why you would like to be the mayor, and then the council will decide how it's going to go. We will select one. And trust me, you don't have to worry, I'm not going to be the mayor, and I'm not going to slip in there as to why I want to be the mayor. I'm not. So that's it. We're going to move on now, and I'm going to read the public notice, and then we'll put it to a vote. Public notice for the City of Newport mayor vacancy. In accordance with Vermont statute, Title 24, Sections 961 to 963, the City of Newport Board of Aldermen hereby gives public notice that a vacancy has occurred on the City Council. By statute, the City Council may appoint an individual to fill a vacancy until the next election, which is March of '24. Any person interested for consideration of this appointment must notify the City Council in writing and mail or /email to the following address below. Additional details such as why you would like to be the mayor, information about yourself, how long you've lived in Newport City, previous involvement on past boards, committees, etc., or any additional information you feel will assist the board in differentiating yourself would be greatly appreciated. Letters of interest need to be received by Monday, June 26, 2023, no later than 4 p.m. or 1600 hours. Please mail it to, and it'll come in there, attention mayor vacancy. I don't think you need me to read the city address or the email.
Maybe
tell us why you didn't choose the fourth option, which was to hold a special election?
Yeah, there's another $1,000 for that.
Well,
Yeah.
we get that
Okay.
together probably.
Yeah. We're in the middle of this. Do I hear a motion to accept the City of Newport Mayor vacancy?
So moved.
I have a motion to accept it. Do I hear a second? Second. All right. We've already had the discussion, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of publishing this to the public, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So this will be, make sure it's done by tomorrow. We wouldn't want to be 5 minutes late. And if anyone needs extra copies, I have one here because I don't need one. All right, the next item for discussion,
Excuse me, so
that
just,
one's done.
I just have a point of clarification.
Point of
Just
what is
clarification,
that?
did I hear you say we aren't gonna have an election because it's gonna cost $1,000?
That's one good reason not to do
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yes. It's your tax money and mine.
Thank you.
And then that would run it about, that would run about
Put in the first 20.
2 more months. That's good, very cute, thank you. If you keep your money, you're gonna have your water rate increase from last year. All right, so the next item up for discussion is the discussion of labor relations agreement regarding the Department of Public Works, AFSCME. This will be likely an executive session, and this is an update from the 2 members that are sitting on the negotiating board with the union personnel. Discussion about that? All right, so I need, there's 2 motions that go into executive session.
I move to find, I move to find the premature general public knowledge of the city's labor relations agreement and its negotiations with Department of Public Works, AFSCME, would place the city at a substantial disadvantage because it would give away the city's negotiation position and likely lead to the disclosure of attorney-client privileged and confidential communications.
And there's a second motion, and you read that one too.
One at a time.
Hmm?
So we vote on one and then.
Okay. So I have a motion to go into executive session, reason why. I have a second. All those in favor say aye. 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 And now to get into this, we have to have a second motion.
I move to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313A1B to discuss labor relation agreements with the Department of Public Works, AFSCME, and ask that the city clerk and city manager and
Do I have a second?
do we want David in this one? And
I don't think we're gonna need you for this one, David.
Okay, do you need me for the, do you think you'll need me for the next one?
I don't believe so. I think we can handle that.
Okay, well then I will sign off.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Right. And we had a second? Yes. So I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. So unfortunately, you all have to leave. And then we will come back because there's one more motion after, one more item after this. Item number 6, there was no action taken. So we're going on to item number 7, interview and discussion regarding a potential candidate for interim city manager position. So I need a motion to go into executive session for an interview for possible interim city manager.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. What?
Aren't we allowed to talk before the motion?
Yes, you can.
So I was just gonna ask, do we know who the candidate is, and are we allowed to know that?
Probably will right after the interview, because it is anticipated possible vote.
But we can't know now?
I have no problem letting you know. Karen Garrity.
Those who don't know me.
Okay, I have a motion to go,
And-
he's gonna read it.
Yeah, I'm
Now,
sorry.
I have another question. Have you considered other candidates?
I guess I can answer that. I can answer that. No one wants the job,
Why just hire him?
okay? That, okay, she asked a question, I answered it. No one else is interested. We need someone in charge steering the boat.
Has it been advertised?
Have a motion.
I move that we enter an executive session to interview a potential interim city manager candidate to assist with the city manager transition. Title 1, Section 313, subsection 3A3, and have the city clerk treasurer, the candidate, join us along with our current city manager.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going back into executive session. And do I entertain a motion?
I make a motion of the city contracting with Karen Garrity for a scope of professional services for city administration effective June 5th, 2023, and authorize the council president to sign the contract pending approval by the city attorney.
Okay, we have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right,
Yeah, you got
all those in favor,
Who seconded? Chris.
say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Number 8, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President, so how does this affect Ms. Dovey? Because at one point, I think you were gonna get into a contract with her, so is that not gonna happen now? And how long is Ms. Garrity's contract for?
The probability of going into a contract with the soon-to-be former city manager probably is not going to occur. And the contract, I believe, is for a minimum of 6 months, pending results for a city manager search.
Mr. President, is there anything in the contract that has, that would prevent Ms. Garrity from applying for the full-time position?
No.
Okay.
All right, it's, number 7 is over. Number 8, do I hear a motion to adjourn at civilian time 6:55 p.m.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.